Welcome back, everybody. Long time no see. Today's video is going to be answering an age-old question that I seem to be getting a lot, which is how do you deal with the likes of an Outworld Devourer mid, a Viper mid, a Viper offlane if you're playing carry, or in this case, we're going to be seeing Bane mid. So the thing that I think about these heroes is that they all kind of have that single target FU mantra to them. You know, they're a complete nightmare of a hero to lane against because Viper poison attacks you, OD constantly astral imprisons you, and Bane nightmares you and hits you. It's not very fair. You know, Huskar mid as well if you're like a melee hero. So today's video is going to be highlighting Thompson playing Bane and having won most of his pubs prior against Sumail, who's dealing with this shut you down nightmare of a hero. And we're going to be talking about how Sumail deals with that and things you guys can do, things you can be on the lookout for when you're dealing with these really annoying heroes in pubs. So let's go ahead and get started. So what's really important to note is that Sumail is going to not really get to play Dota here, as we see both Thompson and Sumail at about half HP, 3 minutes into the lane, about even on CS. And we're going to see what you guys probably know and love when you're dealing with Outworld Devourer, Viper, etc., right? We're going to see a Thompson nightmare into just right-click him down. Sumail, you know, gets to dance while he slept. And then he's going to die, right? So not only is he in a matchup that's already going to be annoying, but the thing about these single target heroes is once they get ahead of you, it's already like GG. Like, Bane's going to hit 6 before he does. You know, Outworld Devourer is going to have 6 before you do. The lane only gets exponentially worse when you die the first time. And a common mistake that people make is attempting to lane as normal once this happens. And in a lot of matchups, that's going to be okay. You come back to lane, that guy used a bunch of resources, or you out-trade him when you come back, whatever. But in this case, that is not going to be how it goes. So we're just going to fast forward and show like Sumail's perspective on the matter, right? So he's got boots first and foremost, so he's already kind of gearing up to not lane because he can walk around a bit more instead of going for like a full wand or a Basilius first. Notice how Bane goes for runes and he's not even going for them. He's just not interacting with Bane at all. The highlight that I want to have of this video is look how he's not even laning. He doesn't even feel like he can walk up. And so the most important aspect that you guys can learn to recognize in these matchups is what happens if I just walk up? I feel like I can't even play the lane. So first we saw Sumail just CS a bunch of creeps while Thompson's picking up runes, right? And now when Thompson's back in lane, we see Sumail not walking up at all. He doesn't want to get nightmared. He's just spamming Lightning Storm to get last hits, right? He walks up and this is what happens. Gets nightmared, lose half his HP. It's pretty freaking annoying. See, he's fighting back a little bit since Bane's busy CSing under tower, but look what happens here. So the boots allow him to kind of look around the map and go for a bounty rune. So a key lesson from this video is that when you're in these type of matchups, whether you're carry, mid lane, or off lane, or whatever, it is important to realize that your lane is unapproachable. It sucks. So because of that, we first need to think of all of our options that we have on the map itself, such that these options that are generally not better than laning, such as picking up a bounty rune, are now going up in value in comparison to what we would normally want to do. So Leshrac, level 5, picking up a bounty, and he sees the enemy offlaner contesting a small camp right now. And this is all about opportunity. If Sumail had absolute free farm in the mid lane, he wouldn't even be here in the first place. But this is something that you're more likely to do because of the fact that his lane kind of sucks. And you're going to see that he just goes bottom and go ahead and kill the Brewmaster in a lane that was previously favored for Brewmaster. It's a carry Brood against Brewmaster. So he's going to tilt the balance of these other two lanes in favor of his teammates. And meanwhile, he returns back to mid, not really living the dream, basically soaks 2 creeps of XP, and then walks out of lane. Notice how he's not laning at all. What's he going to do? Another option on a hero like Lesh that has, once he gets ultimate, he can farm stacks. He's going to stack both these camps at the same time. Now, these are small efficiencies, but notice what he's doing. He's surrendering getting the rune. So one thing that's really big about these heroes like Bane is that they are super powerful if you're the only one there. So notice how passive he's going to play when you look at the map and see that none of his teammates are really in this area. So he plays super passive, doesn't even fight for the rune. In this case, if he were to go for the rune, he'd be likely to get Fiend's Gripped. He doesn't know where Bounty Hunter is, so he might even get ganked by a Bounty Hunter and most likely die. So he's playing super passive for his own farm, and then he's just going to kill the creeps while he can. Look how far back he was playing, and he still managed to get caught by an Invis Bane. And this is what would have happened to him at the rune for sure, right? Which is just die. And this is like a nightmare for most mid laners. Enemy mid's level 7, you're level 5.5. Don't even have your arcane boots yet. So what's he going to do now, right? And that's just going to be get his level 6, fortunately, from the creep wave. And then he's just going to fuck off, right? Going to leave the lane. That stack that he made earlier is going to pay massive dividends here because it would feel really bad to clear single camps. And then he's going to walk towards bottom, potentially considering farming because he sees that Bane is here now. So there's really no reason to go back mid. Oh, he's like, oh, the lane's getting pushed in, and my Tiny is coming to mid. Notice how the Tiny and Disruptor are now rotating for the 8-minute runes. So a big thing about these single target heroes is not only are they just going to completely screw you over if you're by yourself, but they actually struggle immensely when there's multiple heroes in their lane, right? It just makes sense. They're really good at dealing with one person. So he's going to go to the rune with his supports. That's actually going to lead to a counter kill on tops and mid, right? And he gets the arcane rune, which is really fortunate. But what we really want to see is when we're dealing with these single target fuck you heroes, do you have supports? Do you have help? What timings can your teammates really benefit you? So like Viper off lane's likely not going to gank. Broodmother safe lane's likely not going to gank, right? Maybe you have a Faceless Void that gets Chronosphere and might TP mid. Maybe you have a Mars that gets level 6 and might TP mid. You can look to call for these moves saying, hey guys, really hard lane for me mid. I can't deal with Bane alone. Come help me. So this is something that's going to happen in high tier pubs naturally because the supports are good players and they know kind of how this stuff works. But the biggest emphasis is, do you want to interact with the enemy hero 1v1? So basically never lane when he's by himself and look for plays when his supports are here. It seems so simple, but being consciously aware of this and adjusting to it in your guys' games when you're dealing with these heroes mid is super important. What I want to highlight about these heroes that I'm talking about, the ODs, the Banes, etc., is that they don't kill your tower and they don't flash farm. So leaving them alone in lane, letting them get solo XP, they're not going to like spiral that advantage. Heroes like Lone Druid are a completely different story because if you leave the lane for a bit, they're just going to kill your tower. Also, giving heroes like Leshrac a free start is also scary because he takes your mid tower, then he takes top tower. But Bane and the likes of OD and Viper, they're only good at really killing heroes in the early game. So it's an important consideration to think, if they don't really kill my tower and they don't really accelerate their farm by getting levels and items, then I'll just let them have the lane. So notice how that's what he's doing is Bane gets the lane unless they're ganking, right? So obviously his supports are giving him a lot of help, which is absolutely fantastic. And notice how now that he's just going to leave mid. You're going to see how active he is in this game because of the status quo of his lane is not good. He doesn't want to lane versus Bane by himself. So he's just going to keep moving around the map, forcing these rotations. Even Bane's going to show up, right? Like Topson feels pressured to like help his team now because Leshrac's playing around his teammates and he can't just like sit mid doing nothing all game, right? On the side of Bane. So we're going to see a lot of 4v4s. And this is something that is really important to think of. If there's a ton of heroes in a skirmish, 8 to 10 minutes, 12 minutes in, is that good for my hero or bad? So for Topson, see how he's playing super hesitantly, not really entering the fight. But Sumail is eagerly looking to make this happen. These are the type of questions we have to ask ourselves, because I feel like the majority of people who ask me these questions and struggle in lane matchups are matchups where 1v1, they will do poorly. And this is the necessary adjustment that you must make when conceptually dealing with these matchups, right? So Bane looks pretty underwhelming when there's 4 heroes there, right? And this game is just going to get blown wide open in favor of Sumail and his team. Now, I know a lot of you like to cop this out and say, well, his teammates are playing around him a ton. You mentioned the Broodmother likely wouldn't even gank. Well, what I'm trying to say is the only time he is fighting is when this is the case. So if you're dealing with low-level pubs, you might lean more towards the bounty runes, playing for stacks, maybe like a gank to the side lanes if you see an opportunity, but maybe just playing for your own farm a bit better and placing a defensive ward would do the job for you. The major emphasis is don't fight by yourself, don't lane by yourself, and if your teammates are in the area, look to make something happen because these single target heroes do struggle in these situations. So we're going to go and pull up one more example of Sumail playing against Topson in the same day against the Bane with a different hero, and we're going to talk about his approach in lane. And this time, in this next replay, it's going to be Sumail playing DK against Topson's Bane. So what we saw in the previous game, which was the first time they played against each other, we saw Sumail get nightmared and then just right-click down by Bane. And that was spelled the end of him, and that was the reason the matchup was so difficult. So if you see here, Topson picks in the second round of the draft with pick 8, and Sumail has 10th pick to respond to the Bane that he previously, even though he won the game, it looked really annoying to lane against. So he picks DK, a hero that literally plays for sustain and to get right click down and chip down over time and have it not be enough. DK is really bad against heroes like Viper and Huskar, who can just dish out endless amounts of damage over time that out damages your sustain. But he's really good against the nightmare just right clicks of Bane because it's pure physical damage coming out from the right clicks, and it's not enough theoretically to chew through the DK. So kind of understanding what makes these heroes really good. So like for Viper with poison attack, it might be a hero with a built-in dispel would be good against Viper, or a hero like Wind Ranger that can prevent the stacks of poison attack from accruing. But generally understanding like, okay, Huskar needs to outrange me, so picking like a Lino or an SF, you know, Bane needs to be able to right click me down. Understanding what makes these heroes kind of fuck you over is really crucial. And we're going to see how Sumail actually takes a toxic matchup and just wins this one. And we're going to talk about like his conceptual approach to that now as we pull into game 2. So first and foremost, Sumail, you'd think of like the aggressive spell, Dragon Tail, like the one that he's going to look to like make plays on Bane. We're going to see him completely skip this ability throughout the entire course of the lane. And what I want to say is this: when you're dealing with these toxic laning heroes that don't accelerate their farm, your job is to play for your own game as best as possible, make stacks for yourself on Leshrac, or in this case, play for sustain and farm on DK. It's like on Leshrac, you'd be very likely to max out your Edict and try to take buildings in a matchup where you're favored. But in a matchup where you're unfavored, like the previous game, looking to put a couple extra points in your Lightning Storm and play for stacks and play for ganks with your stun is going to be the approach that Sumail took that game. So on DK, in a matchup where you're really strong, you'd be likely to take your stun, right? Because that's the way that you can like kill the guy when you hit level 6. You can really put pressure on with ganks from your supports. But in this case, we're going to see him completely skip the spell because that's the spell that implies aggression. So really understanding survive the lane above all else, and these heroes tend to fall off. These heroes like Bane, OD, etc. in terms of their impact in the mid game. They either like rapidly snowball or they kind of feel underwhelming. So we're going to see that he goes for double bracer, right? He starts with stat items, even skips a Quelling Blade, and plays a lot for denies. You're going to see him actually just outlast hit Bane because he's got 75 damage. And while Bane hits for 77, DK's melee. So he's going to have like the advantage of the timing of the CS. And as long as he's allowed to lane, meaning that he's not getting harassed out by the right clicks, then abusing that attack animation is going to be absolutely crucial, right? Also, he's got the Breathe Fire to reduce Bane's damage. And Bane doesn't really want to brain sap the creeps. So notice the skill build, right? 102, Breathe Firing every single time the creep wave plays, and actually fighting back and saying like, hey, you know, I'm going to hit you back. Play a little of the sustain game themselves. Double bracer, even going for a mango as opposed to like a clarity or the Sage's Mask towards like a Mage Slayer. Like the mango, it seems small, but look, just health regen, health regen, health regen, health regen. This is his approach to dealing with Bane, and he basically picked the best hero for doing it, and he's still rocking like a consistent 1/3 HP, right? Consistently Breathe Firing for damage reduction, even like we talked about earlier, completely skipping Dragon Tail. Only really going for CS. Look at his items, right? Going max out strength for CS, maxed out stats, taking his Dragon's Blood 3rd point, right? And he's just winning the CS. 26-9 to the 15-5 of the Bane. So we're kind of seeing like when this hero can't completely body you out of lane, these toxic heroes are kind of underwhelming. Like Bane, if he can't Nightmare me and kill me, if Viper can't just stack a bunch of poison attacks on me, if Huskar can't spam me with burning spears, these heroes are just not very scary, right? So that's exactly what we're seeing here. And we're even going to see him going to start like playing for this tower pressure, because since he's winning the lane, he's going to hit his level 6 before Bane does. That Fiend's Grip not coming online yet. And notice how this is the complete opposite approach. Because he's winning his lane, he's consistently pressuring the tower. His supports are actually rotating for him. And they're able to basically, even though he doesn't have stun, just kind of war of attrition this Bane down. And since he doesn't have 6 yet, we're not overly concerned. Now he does have 6 about like the Fiend's Grip full duration. So now that Sumail used his 6 before Bane got his, what's he going to do, right? What's he going to do now that Bane has 6? What's the play? And that's just Breathe Fire, hit creeps, defensively aggro. Look how he's like globally defensive aggroing defensive aggro, playing on his own hill, right? And he's just going to keep sitting back. Notice how he's winning this lane immensely. He's winning by almost double the CS. And look how passive he's playing until he sees the supports from the enemy team on the map, right? Playing super far back, even taking Breathe Fire as a way to like max out farm now that he's full health. He's like sustained the pressure of Bane. He sees Bane moving around the map. Notice how when Thompson's losing the lane, he's moving around the map. So you're actually seeing the reversal here of the guy that's losing his lane is more enticed to move around the map and try to make something happen because the status quo of the mid lane sucks. So DK is a hero that when he gets his lane the way he wants it, like we're seeing here, we just want to kill the tower, right? And the big emphasis now is how do we make sure that we've beaten this toxic hero, that we don't throw away this lead, right? And what we're going to see is that his first item isn't a farming item. It's not like a Mage Slayer or a Midas or a Manta that we see a lot of these DKs going for. It's just going to be straight Blink. And so the highlight that I want to make, since we talked about having a bad lane and adjusting in these weird matchups, now that he's in a good matchup, he's just going to play with his team. He's just a casual ultless DK walking around with his team, playing together, saying, hey, let's take this tower. You know, my brew's only level 5, but fuck it. Like, let's force a rotation. It doesn't even go well for them, but I want to highlight that there's a consistency here. The consistency is to play around your team or don't play like in lanes up on towers at all. So what we're going to see here is that since Bane is dead, he feels comfortable playing the map, and then he's just going to go off map again, hitting some creeps, gets his level 9, so his stun timing comes perfectly with his blink, and then he's just going to play around. Notice how he's farming towards his carry, making sure he's ready to counterplay the Bane, right? It's the same idea, making sure he's not an easy target for the Bane, and also being ready to counterplay. So much of the time, you'll see him kind of flow on the map towards his other cores, towards his teammates, in a way that forces a bunch of reactions from the opponent, and such that the Bane doesn't get single target pickoffs like he also, you know, his wet dream, basically. They're going to take down the Bane, overwhelm them with numbers. Dire, who's only down by 2k at this point, suddenly the game is like almost insurmountable. 3k, they're going to take the ancient stack, kill another guy, 4k, and this game's going to spiral out of control and end at 26 minutes. So the point of this video, if we want to rehash it and recap just a little bit, is the fact that so many people have asked me the question of what do I do in these matchups where that guy just single-handedly owns me, like that one hero just owns me in a vacuum. And we're seeing what Sumail did in the first game, how he adjusted in the matchup that couldn't really handle it, and then conceptually approached it in the second game and said, oh, that's why that hero owned me, specifically annoyed me in this way. I'm going to pick a hero that deals with that really well. And maybe the first time you try this whole like counter picking strat, maybe it's not going to work that well for you because you're not too familiar with matchups, or you've never played DK before, or, you know, you're spitballing and trying to come to the right answer. But this is like entering the mind of these pros and how they pick and adjust from game to game, how they adjust within a game where they've kind of been cheesed in the draft. And I hope you guys use this as, you know, do I interact with the mid? Do I show in lanes? Do I play for my own farm? Do I rotate? These are great questions to ask yourself in these type of matchups in every game, but specifically these type of matchups, because weathering that storm in the early game will almost certainly secure you victory against these heroes, but preventing these heroes from going just completely snowballing out of control is what Sumail beautifully did during these games. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Like, comment, subscribe. See you guys next time.